Hey, Husker fans, welcome back to the Husker Big Red podcast. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is my co-host, Danny Gillette. We're back here on this Thursday afternoon. We're going to look ahead to Nebraska football and Ohio State. We're going to talk about whatever that press conference was with Marcus Satterfield. We're going to get into that a little bit and just kind of look ahead to this game and a little bit, at the future for this Nebraska program. So before we do that, before we get into it, please make sure that you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And Danny, how are you doing on this fine Thursday?
I'm doing okay. It's actually like 75 degrees here, which is rare for October, so it's helping my mood a little bit. It's helping my mood following this week that has been Nebraska football. And I was just wondering where you got that nice polo. I know you wear it all the time, but I'm like, I need to get one of those because I'm not wearing any Nebraska gear.
I think it was the old Fanatics probably
Okay.
site,
Okay.
Yeah, it's where the
Nice.
so I need to, I was wanting to get a Dylan Raiola jersey. Hopefully, I can still get one of those and it'll be, I'm worried about the future of this team, man. Like I really am. Although the number 15 is pretty timeless in Nebraska football, so it would work either way.
Yeah.
But speaking of all that, I mean, I think people were obviously freaking out about the offense and all these things, and then Marcus Satterfield comes to the podium on what was that, Wednesday? That was yesterday, right? Or no, that was Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday. And Tuesday. And there was, I mean, I don't try to put too much stock into press conferences. I think people can overreact a little bit, but it was a little bit concerning to hear him just have no idea like how many yards per play Nebraska has, and that there seemed to be no goal there or no kind of, because it's like if you want to set a goal, I mean, it's usually is helpful if you have a goal in mind, and how to achieve working to achieve that goal. And so I don't know if that's really indicative of Nebraska not having goals or plans or anything, but it just did seem like he was a little bit clueless up there, and his, the production of the offense kind of shows that he's been a little bit clueless too. But what were your thoughts on the whole? Because it's just been on fire on Nebraska Twitter the last day or so about Marcus Satterfield.
The fact that he said he wants to run the football more, and it's taken him almost 2 seasons to figure that out. I mean, that was more jarring to me than the yards per play. Because let's be honest here, I don't really know what a good yards per play number is either. He said 4 to 6. I mean, and that didn't sound terrible to me when you consider, second and 6 or, third and 4 or whatever. But the fact that he said he wanted to run the football more and that he needs to do it more, I mean, this is something that Matt Rule has wanted to do ever since he started his tenure. So I'm wondering if there's conflicting messages there or they're not on the same page.
Yeah, that did stick out to me more than the yards per play thing, which, I mean, it seemed a little strange. Wasn't a great look per se, but whatever. It's not
I mean, it's
probably
kind
not
of a weird
something.
question to be asked at a press conference too, so I could see where that could throw him off a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can see that. Or I mean, maybe they could have asked him like, what are some of your team's offensive goals? I mean, they could have, maybe followed up in a different way. But at any rate, but I do agree that when he talked about the running game, and he said, basically that a lot of it's on me, and that I don't commit to it and I get away from it and yada yada. And I think maybe that is part of it. I do think they got away from the running game against Indiana. I mean, it's easy when you're down 28-7 and you see them scoring every time. Like, I understand it, but you still have to remember that you have a freshman quarterback. And I mean, whether you're a freshman or not, if you don't have a running game in the Big Ten, like, your life is not going to be easy. Like, put JJ McCarthy out there without a running game, and it's going to be tough. Like that, I don't care who you are, because the defenses in this league, I mean, it's barely short of the NFL in terms of schemes and stuff that they're getting around. So, like, if you're in 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, like, you're going to get difficult things. The quarterbacks are going to see things that are tough to process, and we kind of saw that. With Dylan, he started trying to press a little bit. So, I mean, at the end of the day, like, as far as Raiola goes, like, I'm not super concerned about, the interceptions per se, but I am concerned about, that they've got 1 touchdown pass in the last 3 games, and that they don't seem to be able to generate any, explosive plays in the run game or the passing game. And like, they've got athletes, but, they just don't know how to really get them the ball. And I mean, last week they targeted Ja'Cory Barney 10 times, and his longest completion was 6 yards. Like, it just seems like there's a lot of scheming and planning going on that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And it's like, I get that you want to get Ja'Cory Barney the ball, but he is clearly, at least right now, to me, a gadget type of player. And it's like, I'm not sure that he should be getting 10 targets. You know what I mean? Like, we got to figure out something that's reliable in this offense. And, whether it's, going back to the Glenn Thomas thing, when he was talking about how they were going to be, like the 49ers with all these formations and stuff, like maybe this staff is just doing too much with these guys. I don't know, but it doesn't look like there's anything if this team needs a drive, like say we have to go get a field goal or whatever, like there's nothing that they can go to, in my opinion, that they're like, we know this is going to work. It just seems like a lot of stuff throwing at the wall and just without like a real true plan.
And it's tough when you don't have many receivers that can create separation. I mean, Isaiah Nayor is not really a separation receiver. Banks isn't really a separation. I mean, he can be, but he hasn't really shown it this year. Jalen Lloyd is a bit more of a separation receiver, but he just hasn't been able to, I don't know, find his groove this year, whether it be not seeing the field or whatever. And you look at this wide receiver unit, and yes, there's a ton of talent, but, you know, I have to wonder if we're running the right scheme for the talent that we have.
Yeah, I wonder that too. And one thing that I don't think we mentioned this on the air, but it is kind of an interesting point about Nebraska. If you have a great quarterback in Dylan Raiola, a really talented quarterback. He's got all the tools to be a first round pick in the NFL someday. But at the same time, though, does Nebraska have the infrastructure and the ability to recruit the types of players that you need to run a pro style offense? You need, if you're going to drop back and throw like that, you need a left tackle that can play. You need tackles who can play. You need wide receivers that can beat man coverage and can get open and can do those things for their quarterback. And, like we just haven't seen that from Nebraska. And so I don't know, maybe they just don't have the ability to get the kind of players that they need around Dylan Raiola to run a pass heavy offense without a running quarterback, because most teams in college football have that ability to run. I mean, you look at Ohio State, you look at Oregon. I mean, they've got some of the better quarterbacks and they can run.
Miami.
Miami, Cam Ward can run. So it's like Nebraska doesn't have that. And if you don't have that, you have to be really, really good in your base run game and your base pass game. And Nebraska hasn't been really good in either. So I don't know. That's kind of an interesting question going forward. But, I'm just not sure Nebraska can recruit the kind of receivers that they need to run the offense with the quarterback that they have. So I don't know. I mean, I never really thought about that before, but I did see somebody mention that somewhere, and it kind of did. Yeah, it's like maybe there is some truth to that. So I don't know. I'm not exactly sure, but they got to figure out something, I guess. So, with Marcus Satterfield, I mean, I have lost confidence in him, and I think that this team probably has, and that's why I do think that Matt Rule should have made a move this week, and I think it should have been this week to Glenn Thomas. I'm not saying fire Satterfield because that'll happen at the end of the season, but I mean we see this happen in the NFL all the time. Like guys get demoted, or like the head coach will take over the play calling. That doesn't mean that you're going to fire Marcus Satterfield. Like you still need a tight ends coach. You still need somebody to help with the game planning or whatever. But there is definitely an art to play calling. And some people have it. Some people have the sixth sense for play calling, and some people don't. And I think it's pretty clear that like Marcus Satterfield just does not have a feel for play calling, and maybe Glenn Thomas does. And I think this would have been a good chance to see what he could do and get his feet wet. Because now, if this offense tanks on Saturday and you score 7 points, then are you going to come out with Glenn Thomas and his first game is a must win against UCLA? Like I just think it would have been better to get his feet wet this week, but that's just me.
I mean, in my opinion, I would have rather have Satterfield be the fall guy for Ohio State and have Thomas, start against an easier opponent in UCLA, because if, yes, it's Ohio State, but if Thomas, had a difficult game on Saturday, people are already going to be questioning his play calling ability. So I would rather him get the test against UCLA, an easier team. Now, granted, it's going to be a difficult stretch in November, but I have no problem letting Satterfield, call the Ohio State game and then have Thomas kind of take the reins against UCLA.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's definitely and that could be, a line of thinking. I honestly, I think I'm going to be surprised though if Matt makes a move. He just doesn't seem like the guy that's going to make that type of move in season. So we'll see. I mean, Utah and Oklahoma fired their offensive coordinator, and Utah's offensive coordinator was like, other teams were trying to hire him away last season, Andy Ludwig, and then he stepped down, but still same thing.
Yeah.
And so it's like that dude has that dude has a hell of a lot better resume than Marcus Satterfield, and he's out already. So like, I don't know. It's like we were talking the other day. I do think that, I am worried that Matt Rule's loyalty and his willingness to be loyal to people almost to a fault is really going to take down this program. I think we've seen that with some players, like we're questioning why some guys aren't in the lineup. Well, I think it goes back to that loyalty thing. And I just don't buy that. Like I get loyalty to a point, but when you have a football program, the best players need to play at all times because The players know. Like, you're not fooling every single player on that roster knows who should be starting at cornerback, including those players. They know who the two best cornerbacks are. So why aren't they on the field at the same time? Out of loyalty. It's out of loyalty. And that's not the way that you build a successful program. And I think we're starting to see some of those cracks with Matt Rule. It's got to be a meritocracy. It really does. And either you can do the job or you can't. And if Marcus Satterfield can't do the job, then I'm sorry, you got to go.
Yeah, I think we're going to see some staff changes at the end of the season. I don't think anything's going to be made during the season, but Satterfield, Ed Foley, take a look at Garrett McGuire and also kind of take stock of this defense. Take stock of Tony White and see, because there has been regression on the defensive side of the football this year, and people want to talk about the offense, and rightfully so, but like I said on our last show, the defense hasn't really, been up to par either.
No, I mean, and I don't even know how many third downs Iowa converted. It seemed like every one. I mean, you go from not giving up a rushing touchdown to giving up 5, and it was like, man, it was bad. And so, yeah, I agree with you 100%. No, that's the thing is those guys, like, moving ahead to what we need to see from this team against Ohio State, I need to see this black shirt defense that has a little bit of fight. I don't want to see that team that I saw on Saturday against Indiana. That team quit. I don't care what anybody says. Those guys quit in the second half. When the backup quarterback comes in and is throwing 2 touchdowns on you, like, come on, man. Like, you guys gave up. And I get they're tired, but that's not the type of effort that I expected to see from a Matt Rule coach team. Like, that took me back to the Bill Callahan, like Mike Riley days. Like, it was bad. And
Eric Shenander days.
yeah, for real. And we've seen plenty of it's just that was the kind of game I didn't think. Like, I understand we're going to lose games, but I did not expect to lose 56-7 to anybody, let alone Indiana, under Matt Rule. So that was kind of staggering to see that. But I do think it's about this black shirt defense, man. Like, these guys, that was supposed to be the strength of this team. And if they're giving up 56 points against people, then this team has no shot to do anything this year. So they have got to get it right. They've got to get it figured out. I understand the task at hand against Ohio State is going to be, like, very difficult, but I think that I would like to see this team hold Ohio State under 30 points. And I think I think if this defense is worth its salt, this defense we saw against Colorado, like, I think that's doable. I think 30 points is doable. But that's kind of my biggest goal in this game, because I just think if this defense can't I think if they give up 50 points on Saturday, I just don't know how they're going to get themselves back up off the mat for the last 4 games.
Yeah, and this defense has been inconsistent all season. They played a great game against Purdue. They struggled against Illinois. They played a pretty good game against Colorado, but they almost lost the lead to Rutgers. Granted, that was a low scoring game, but still. And you look at the scheme and you look at some of the linebacker play too. I mean, it hasn't been great, and so I think as a whole, this defensive unit is, kind of struggling a little bit. And, one of the things I want to see on Saturday is somebody other than Ty Robinson, Nash, or James Williams, make a play. And we have seen flashes like Mikhail Gabayer, I thought played decently on Saturday. And, some of the freshmen have played well throughout the course of the season, but I need to see a bigger effort from some of the other guys on defense.
Yeah, I definitely I would like to see that. And one thing that I really want to see on Saturday is that this offensive coaching staff, whether it's Satterfield, Thomas, together, I don't care. They have got to figure out a way to get Dylan Raiola back in his groove, because the last 2 games he's struggled. 4 interceptions, 0 touchdowns. They've got to find a way to get a running game going, and whether it's early completions, they have just got to find a way to get him in a rhythm early and get some of that confidence back. It's kind of the same thing. Like, even if Nebraska doesn't win this game, which I have no expectation, if the defense can play well and if they can get a positive performance out of Dylan Raiola, then you have something going into the last month that you can really build on, because he's going to have to play better over the last month than he has, in the last couple of weeks. And it's kind of on that staff to put him in a good position. And they have not, at least in that Indiana game, they did not do that. So I want to see how they kind of handle him and hopefully that running game. But really even more than the running game, like, they just have to get Raiola going, which I don't think will happen unless they're able to run the ball.
And on the point of running the football, I've watched the Indiana game back a little bit, and in the running game, the holes are there. The running backs are just missing them. I mean, they're missing a lot of open running lanes. And so the play design, in some situations, not all, but in some, has been pretty decent. It's just a lack of vision on the part of the running backs. And, one of the things our running backs do well is run straight forward, and they can't do much else. They can't make people miss. They can't, they're not exactly speed backs. So that kind of limits your big playmaking ability in the running game. And so I guess I just want to see sound fundamentals in terms of running the football. Find those gaps. Don't try to create something where there isn't anything. And, just kind of know what type of running back you are, I guess. I don't know. Like, it's just really, really kind of frustrating to see.
Yeah, it is. It is frustrating, and Matt talked about it. Matt Rule talked about that. How this team hasn't been able to break off very many explosive runs. I think they have only 17 runs this season of over 10 yards as a team, and not very many over 20. Like there are blocked up plays. They just aren't making guys miss. And like at some point, like the offensive line can only do so much. Like the holes that you need to go through it, like at this level, aren't very big. Like you seal off a guy for a second, and then basically as the running back, like you need to meet the linebacker or safety, whatever, in the hole, and it's your job to make that guy miss, right? Because most of the time in blocking schemes, like you can't block everybody. You're blocking like out of a front seven, you're probably blocking 5 or 6, and you're hoping that one guy gets lost in kind of the wash, of the direction of the play, and that the running back can make like the linebacker or safety, and that's how you get big plays. You make a guy miss, you get your receivers blocking on the outside. That's how you get big plays, and we haven't seen that on either side. The receivers aren't blocking very well, and running backs aren't making people miss. So that's like guys just have to make plays. Like, and it goes back to the receivers. Like at some point, these dudes have to make plays for their quarterback. Like it's like in the NFL, man. Like you have to throw those 50-50 balls. And with the way Nebraska plays offense with Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nair, like Dylan, to get explosive plays, Dylan has to throw those balls. He has to throw those 50-50 balls down the field to Nair and Banks and Jalen Lloyd. And these guys have just got to come up and make plays. And they have not done it. They haven't. I mean, yeah, they did it against UTEP. You know what I mean? They did it, a couple against Illinois, but they've got to start making plays for the quarterback. And Dylan can't sit there and be worried about interceptions or whatever, because like I just don't see how else we're going to make those explosive plays unless he takes those chances, like we saw against Illinois and some of these other teams. Against Purdue, we saw some of those plays, but the receivers got to make play. Like there's just at some point these guys have got to step up and do something on the field, and it's hard to blame that on the coaching staff, but at the same time they recruited the players. So I don't know. It's like a circle of blame. I don't know where it ends, but like somebody just has to step up, whether it's a player or coach, and get this thing like going back in the right direction. And most of the time at this point, it's like a dude stepping up and making plays, like a Rex Burkhead or like Amir Abdullah. Like this team needs somebody to become a star. And we thought that was going to be Dylan, and it hasn't been that so far. And that's not necessarily his fault. It's still his freshman year, obviously. Like he's been a great player, but like somebody on this team needs to become the dude that we go to when we need a play, and there isn't one on either side of the ball. And that's the biggest issue. One of the biggest issues I think we have right now.
And I think, honestly, one of the biggest issues right now is that we go for, our schemes are designed for big plays. We're not getting them, but we don't know what else to do or where else to go. It's like you try to draw up these, plays that are long developing and have a chance for, explosive ability, but they're just not there. And one of the things that Nebraska's kind of gotten away from, I think, is just dumping the ball down to the running back in the receiving game. I thought Ramir Johnson did an excellent job of, making things happen after the catch in the first couple of games, and we've kind of gotten away from that a little bit. So if the receivers aren't really making big plays and you need some quick yards, I would love to see the running back schemed up a little bit more in the passing game.
And yeah, this whole game comes down to just like attitude and what's don't worry about the score. Don't worry about, like you can't go in there just hoping to, like, I really believe they can't just go in there and be like, all right, guys, like Matt Rule can't be telling the team, like, let's try to keep this close. Like you need to, like Matt Rule needs to somehow instill in this team that you can win this game. If everything goes right, if we do these things, like that's the belief this team needs to get off the bus with that belief. And, like if he's going to give one, like this would be a great time for one of his speeches that we've all loved, like we need one of those. This team needs that. They need a shot in the arm right now. And I just think like, man, they need something good to happen in that first quarter. They need a good first quarter, and they need to not be down 21-0 or 14-0, like a turnover, a big play on offense, something on special teams, for God's sakes. But they just need something positive to hang on to in that first quarter. Otherwise, like, it's going to get ugly. And that's, at the end of the day, that's the one thing that I really don't want to see, because I just don't know how this team's going to, function and kind of recover going forward if they get beat like 50-10. Like, that's really, it's hard. It's hard to come back from that. And you lose 2 games in a row like that. Like, I don't know that you just come in the next week and beat UCLA by 21 points. I just don't think that happens. So that's what I want to see, is something positive, and just get some freaking positive momentum going into these last 4 games.
Because there's still a lot to play for heading into November, so it's not like the season is all lost. But my bold prediction here, not that we're doing bold predictions, is that they'll have a better offensive output against Ohio State than they did last weekend against Indiana.
Yeah, I guess my bold prediction, I do have a prediction. We'll do our score prediction here, but my only bold prediction for this game that I'm going to make is I think it's going to be closer than the Indiana game, and I can't go bolder than that. But they're not going to lose by 49 points.
No, I agree.
If they do, then I don't know where I will be at a loss for words, because I will be stunned if that happens. Like, if they get canned again, then, like, I don't know where you go from here, but it's not going to be good. So, like, this is a gut check moment. This is like one of those moments where people are like, when they talk about, it's not about getting punched in the face or getting knocked down. It's about how you get back up. Well, this is that moment for Nebraska. Are you going to get back up? Or are you just going to let Ohio State push you back down? And are you going to stay down for the rest of the season? Like, to me, that's more than the X's and O's, more than all the other stuff. Like, that's what this game is about. Like, are you going to come out like this is a street fight, swinging like your life is at stake? Because as a football program, the life of this football program and the life of this head coach, I do believe, is at stake over these next 5 games.
Over these next 5 games, yes.
Not that to be clear, not that I'm saying Nebraska's going to fire Matt Rule. People always like misinterpret what I'm saying. Like, I just think about things from a long-term perspective, and I can see the trajectory right now. Like, the trajectory of this team and his tenure needs to change, or it's going to go the way of Scott Frost. So, like, it's got to change now.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, I think they do have a chance to beat UCLA, and I do think they have a chance to be competitive at all the remaining November games, but I don't want it to come down to the season finale against Iowa like we have several years before, and I just don't want to do that again.
Yeah, that'll be a disaster. Nebraska's 0-6. They've had like their last 6 games to reach bowl eligibility. They've lost 6 in a row. Probably 7. It's going to be 7 on Saturday. It is what it is. It probably is even worse than that. I think people are only keeping track of the last couple of years. It's probably longer than that. But they got to find a way. And I think we're going to find out a lot about this team on Saturday. I'm not in any way expecting this team to win, but we're going to find out. We're going to find out a lot about this program, about the leadership, and just like the mental makeup of this team on Saturday afternoon, big noon kickoff, national TV. Like, please do. I cannot handle another Scott Frostian, like 60-10, 50-10. I can't deal. I don't know what I'll do. Like, I will either get super depressed or I'll put my head through the TV. Not sure.
Although I would feel bad for the rest of your family if you ruin a nice TV by putting your head through it. So I don't want your depression either.
But I'll destroy the one that's unplugged in the spare room.
Is that just your spare TV for after Nebraska loses? You just go and punch it out of
yeah, just go. Yeah, that is a good idea. I'm just gonna put an end on it and just so I get really pissed. Just take it out on the old TV.
That's a good idea. Probably help everybody around you too.
We should start. That should be our new business. We sell old TVs for frustrated Nebraska fans.
Oh man. So I'm thinking about this game, and as far as a score prediction, I do think we're going to do better offensively. But I'm going to go 49-21 Ohio State.
49. So I'm going to go. I think the offense will do a little bit. I think they'll do better in the first half, and then I think we might get shut out in the second half again. So I'm going to say 38-10.
Yeah, that's the other thing. We're playing Ohio State. We've gotten shut out in the second half against much lesser teams. That's the other. Like, okay, so our lack of playing 2 full halves has been an issue all season, and I don't think that's going to improve against Ohio State. And that just brings me back to Satterfield again. Just I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I think that maybe they'll come out and have some success early. I'm hoping. Oh, that's the thing. Ohio State only allows 2.7 yards per carry, which is exactly what Nebraska averages in Big Ten play. So, I'm not sure how the running game is going to work. Their secondary has multiple NFL players on it, like future NFL players. So yeah, it's going to be tough. My hope is that the defense for Nebraska plays really well and kind of keeps us in it in the first half, and then I do think Ohio State will pull away, but I'm hoping that it'll be like, maybe 17-10, 24-10 at halftime. I think that would be really great for Nebraska. And then, you give up a few touchdowns in the second half, like, okay. But that type of game, like a 38-10 or even the 49-21, like that, I think that would be all right, but they can't lose 56-3 or they can't lose 63-10. You know what I mean? Like, and you score 10 points and your touchdown comes with like 3 minutes left when they got the all walk-on squad out there. You know what I mean? Like, can't be that type of thing. So I am gonna pick Nebraska to lose, though. I'm gonna pick Ohio State to cover the spread. So I've been 5-2 so far this year with the Huskers against the spread. So I mean, Indiana and Illinois are the two that I lost, but so I just don't see them covering 25.5 points.
Nebraska knows what they're going up against in Ohio State. I do think they were genuinely shocked by how good Indiana was. Like, I do think Matt Rule said he was shocked. Like, I genuinely believe that this program was shocked by what Indiana was able to do last weekend. So I think that might help a little bit, but they were just very unprepared and let their guard down for Indiana.
Yeah, I think that they thought that they were just going to dominate Indiana in the trenches was what we thought too. We all thought that. Yeah. And when that did not happen, and when you build your game plan around dominating in the trenches and you don't, like, it does look ugly because like Rourke just sat there. I mean, he was so good with his reads that it just didn't matter. And then the RPO defense, like Nebraska had no answer for it. So it was like, okay, I'll run. And then if you come up against the run, I'll just pull it and throw a 5-yard pass. And then Nebraska would miss a bunch of tackles, So it's like, yeah. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I feel like Chip Kelly's going to try to run the ball at us. And if Nebraska can't stop Ohio State's running game, which is very good, it's going to be a very, very long day. So, yeah, my prediction's 38-10, but I have hope that we're going to come out of that feeling a little bit better than we did about the Indiana game. So,
and then it's on to Chip Kelly's old team, UCLA, next weekend. So
the UCLA Bruins. So, what do you think, Danny? Should we do the old Saturday morning chat this week? What's the schedule looking like?
Yeah, we should. I think it's going to be a tough one, but we should definitely do a Saturday morning chat this week.
All right, guys. Well, we'll be back Saturday morning, probably about 8 Central Time, around there. We'll shoot to start it off, and we'll kind of we'll have the pregame coverage. Come join us. You can vent about the Huskers, tell us what you're thinking, and please get into the comment section as well. We love to hear from you guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.